Hello, it's Toby from Heavyweight MMA here today, again with MMA fighter Colby Thicknesse. Today talking about a big fight that's coming up. Jorge Gamebred Masvidal versus Leon Rocky Edwards. Interesting fight. Two hood rats coming from their backgrounds in Jamaica and the background in Miami. You know, talking themselves up. It seems like an unofficial BMF belt, man.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people sort of, even now, still they still sleep on Leon Edwards. They think like he's obviously he's a good fighter, but he's actually like a pretty hard dude. And that, like, you listen to some of the stories he tells, like in some of the interviews, like that bloke's been through some stuff. Like you said, he's pretty much just as much as a contender for BMF as Jorge is.
Yeah, I was just listening to an interview with Jorge and Ariel Helwani, and he was saying that he doesn't believe that that Leon Edwards comes from that dark background. He reckons he's full of shit. After their first instance, when he gave him a 3-piece and a soda, anyone that doesn't know, Gamebred was getting interviewed, and Leon Edwards walked past and said something. I told him to shut up, or said something, and Gamebred walked over with his hands behind his back. Edwards came with his hands up a bit, so he gave him 3 punches, cut his cheek open, and I might pop the footage up afterwards.
I'm glad I got the recipe.
Let's talk about that opening sequence.
Maybe not. If you, hey, come on.
And then that sort of that led Jorge to say that he's not hard because he just talks shit and he wasn't ready for someone to come up and throw down on him. So this is kind of his evidence on the fact that he reckons Leon Rocky Edwards isn't so hard after all.
It's crazy to think that it's taken that long for them to fight even after that. Like, you think the UFC, the way it is, like if they had 2 fighters punching on backstage, the next pay-per-view will probably be them 2 punching on. But how long has it been? Like, probably like at least a year or 2 since that happened.
Yeah, man, it's been a while, and I think they probably had opportunities here and there, but maybe the cards just didn't fall in the right way for them to match those 2 up. Another thing that Jorge was saying was that Leon Edwards was offered fights, but he needed certain terms, like he needed the training camp, etc. He wasn't willing to like jump in on last minute fights, etc. Even for the title, I think he had a chance. Whereas Gamebred jumped in straight away for that fight again on a few weeks' notice with Usman, the first fight. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure why they didn't fight, or why Leon Edwards hasn't fought so much. But maybe it's because he's not as keen to fight at short notice.
He did also get COVID bad though. I remember that. I remember seeing he lost like 10 or 20 pounds over the course of like a week or so. Like, he got COVID really bad, you're really sick, lost a bunch of weight. It affected him pretty bad. I think that's when England started to get it pretty bad. He got it at the start, then he got really sick from it. But obviously now he's recovered pretty well from it. Yeah,
man. And you actually said that you've met him face to face. Can you tell us about that, man? Did you throw a 3-piece and a soda, or you did?
It was when Volko was meant to fight Ortega the first time. We put into the UFC like Athletes Hotel, and it was after. I think it was even the same day. I think we landed on the Saturday, and he obviously fought that Saturday day. And no, it was my bad. We landed on the Sunday, so he fought the night before. And I remember walking in, and I saw this like jacked guy just sort of sitting down, and then he starts talking. He has this Pommy accent. I was like, "Oh shit, that's Leon Edwards." And I just sussed him out. I looked at him, and like, man, like he looks like a sort of tall, lankier, not skinny, but he doesn't look built. But in person, bro, like he's so much bigger than you think. Like, I remember just like seeing like just his like bicep just like looks like it's like touches forearms, like he's just jacked. He's like a really solid build sort of thing. And we had a quick chat. Obviously, he was devastated how the fight with Bilal went about the eye poke. But even then, just having a chat, he was like a really nice guy. Still gave you like all of us like the time of day and everything like that. But it was cool to see him in live, and like sort of he was sitting down, and I was like, fuck. Then he stood up, and I was like, oh, okay, he's a big boy sort of thing.
Yeah, like I said, Bisping also mentioned he was sitting behind him at a show, and he thought, is that Leon Edwards? And he's like, nah, it can't be. It's too big, you know. And then after a while, he's heard the accent, and he's tapped him on the shoulder and chatted with him and gone, oh, sorry, man, I didn't realize you're that big, you know. So obviously he's a decent size, especially when he's not cutting down to fight.
Yeah, exactly right, man.
And another thing that kind of gets me about Edwards is I don't know. I've never heard anyone else mention it, but the way he talks just cracks me up. He's got like a bit of a squeaky, funny little Pommy accent. He kind of reminds me of like Tyson or something, you know, like he doesn't, you listen to the voice by itself, he really doesn't sound like a fighter, like one of the best fighters in the world. He sounds like, from judging at his voice, you think he can't fight at all.
Yeah, it's like a really weird, like squeaky, soft-spoken sort of voice. It's hard to explain, but yeah, if you have like just a picture of Leon and his voice, like you wouldn't put them two together.
Yeah, I might pop a little bit of him talking on afterwards, just for people to have a listen, because it's quite interesting.
I thought he would have went running, to be fair. You know, last 3 years, all he does is make excuses. I asked the UFC for a 5-round fight with him. I think he turned around and said he wanted 3 rounds, and so that's the reason why we're at 3 rounds now, you know. So
yeah, man. So looking at Edwards overall, he's been a pro since 2011, 23 fights, 19 wins, quite a few KOs, 6 KOs, 3 subs. He lost by decision and DQ only, like hasn't been KO'd at all. He was a champ in the UK association called BAMA, I think it was, something like that. 188 centimeters tall, same reach. He's fought Diaz. Obviously, the fight against Diaz, man, like he almost got knocked out at the end. Like, I don't know how impressive that fight really was. If you look at like, if you want to do like an MMA maths or something, you look at the way Masvidal ruined Diaz versus how Edwards almost got KO'd by Diaz. Yeah, I'm not sure it's by MMA maths, he doesn't do too well in that one.
Exactly right. I think also the styles make a big difference. So like Jorge is that type of guy. He's coming out for the finish and that. Whereas Leon's a lot more happy to like sort of, it's not so much he's tentative, but he's more happy to sort of stay on that back foot and sort of work through his sort of techniques. He's happy to just score points and run away with the rounds in that sense. Whereas as you know, Jorge is the type of guy, he's a gamer. He just comes out, he just wants to fight, he just wants to brawl, and he wants to find the finish, which is obviously shown in his style, but also in his record. You can see it's a fair play to him. He takes fights on like his short notices, like you said, against Usman. He does lose hard fights to tough guys because he doesn't really have that sort of like, he's a smart fighter, but I don't think he's as smart as Leon. If you look like someone like Jorge versus Wonderboy is a good example where Wonderboy was able to sort of have his way, whereas I think if Wonderboy fought Leon, it would be a different sort of fight how it would play out. And I think Leon has that technical advantage, but Masvidal just has that like dog in him, whereas he's just, you got to be careful with him. He's happy to put anyone to sleep with one punch.
Actually, that I really liked. I never didn't think about that, but Wonderboy versus Edwards would be a very interesting fight to see. I actually reckon that Wonderboy might take him on that skill advantage. Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, definitely, because it's different. I always think Leon does well against guys like Masvidal and the Diaz, even though the Diaz fight wasn't the most entertaining. Besides the last minute, he was pretty much schooling Diaz for 24 minutes, just like in a technical clinic sort of thing. Jorge was just bashing him. Jorge was also getting hit in that, but Diaz didn't have the power to put him down or anything like that. But then, like you say, if you get 2 technical guys like Leon versus Wonderboy, that would be a fight which would be epic to see.
Yeah, man. Just jumping onto Jorge's record. He's been pro since 2003, so he's got like a 7-year more experience with 50 fights, 35 wins, 16 KOs, 2 subs, 17 decisions. Only lost 2 of those fights that he lost was by KO. Fought through Bellator, Strikeforce, UFC. Recently he's had his losses to Usman, but that's the best in the world, you know. Before that, he beat Diaz, Askren, and Till by a KO. He's very good, man. It's a very difficult one to kind of pick between them, man. I have the trouble with when I look at the way Edwards fights. He seems quite cautious and technical and athletically gifted. And then in some ways, Masvidal has some similar style traits as well. So it's going to be a kind of a little bit tighter than some of their other fights, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like Masvidal's biggest advantage for Masvidal in this fight is one, if he decides to become the aggressor and sort of take the front foot on the fight, I think he's going to be able to take it and sustain it. I don't think Leon's going to be too comfortable in trying to get into that dogfight with Jorge. And that's Jorge's sort of style where he wants to make it tough, gritty. Like him versus Darren Till is a perfect example. He got dropped really early on, but he just kept sticking to the things and boom, second round, he knocks him out sort of thing. And like you said, Jorge's dangerous. we all know he's got his flying knees, but even he's got very, very crisp striking. Like, even though I give the technical edge to Leon, I still highly regard Jorge's striking. Like, he's very strong. He's got good fundamentals. The way I think it's his left body kick, the way he just whips it up is just a lethal kick. He's got good right head kicks. His switch and stance hitting is very good. So he's very well rounded. So his path to victory, I think, will be trying to get it more to that sort of dogfight and trying to catch Leon in the exchanges and everything like that. I don't think, as we all know, we know Jorge's not the type of guy who wants to go out there and just out points someone for 5 rounds. He's going to go out there and try and take Leon's head out.
Yeah, man. Like when you watch Edwards, like I said, he seems to be athletically gifted. To me, he doesn't, in his fight with Diaz, he doesn't look like he really wants to engage so much, though. He likes to stay on the outside and use that technical skill that he has and the athleticism that he has. Nice feinting, distant management. He's patient. He's got good evasion. One thing though, he kind of straight line fighter though. He seems to not really use his angles as much as some of the other fighters in UFC. He's really usually straightforward or straight back. That's one thing that could be taken advantage of a little bit. And he seems a little bit of a safe fighter, man. Like whereas you look at Masvidal again, he's similar in some ways. Like he's also uses the feints a lot. He also hits the leg kicks a lot. He starts off pretty sharp and fast. Like he's probably similar to Edwards in the early part of the first round and then slows down that little bit. And I would say by the nature of where they live and who they've trained with, I would say that Masvidal may have the edge in the clinch, etc. So that could also be another path. Like you said, mix it up. He's also got that blitz kind of style that he has. Like he fights on normally and then he'll do a weird sort of shuffle and a blitz to get in and attack people. And if he does that, make us a little bit ugly, a little bit awkward, that's where his chance will be. And I think maybe pressed up against the cage, he might have a little bit of an advantage. On the ground, I'm not really sure who would be more technically superior, but I'd imagine in the clinch and in the wrestle that Masvidal will be slightly superior.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the point of the clinch actually, because as we both know, Leon loves his clinch, and he's good in the clinch too. He's very good with his elbow strikes. I think him versus, if I'm thinking correct, it was him versus RDA, where off every single clinch exchange, wherever he was exiting, he was getting RDA with an elbow. He's good there. Jorge is also very good, purely because his blitzing styles, he's used to blitzing and hitting people and then clinching up. So I think a lot of this fight, like you said, will be contested from that sort of outside range where I think Leon will have the advantage. Jorge's going to blitz, and then them two are going to end up clinching quite frequently. Then I think it's whoever can get the best of the clinches exchanges is going to sort of find the path to victory that way. Then you say if they take it to the wall, it's hard to say because the only common opponent I think where it hit the ground was Nate Diaz, and Jorge was bashing him from the top and Leon was dominating him on the ground. So there's 2 different styles, but it's actually hard to see how they weigh up. And then you look at someone like Jorge, comes from a good team like ATT where they do have a lot of good counter wrestling. They would be prepared for that. As you know, Leon's not the type of guy to shoot big blast doubles. So he'll normally try and clinch if he gets a trip. If the fights end up on the ground, he's happy there, but he's not going to be actively looking for it.
Yeah, man. So after having a chat about it, man, what are you thinking? What's your final prediction for the fight?
I'm going to have one last quick through the records, and I think I'm going to have to go with Leon, I think. This is 5 rounds for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Actually, I don't even know that, to be honest, because it's UFC 269. So I'm guessing it'll be 3 rounds.
It's under Poirier.
Yeah.
Oh, 3 rounds. Okay, no, 3 rounds. 3 rounds. I think I'm definitely going to favor Leon. I think Leon is just going to sort of it won't be anything spectacular. I think it's going to be sort of like a Wonder Boy Jorge repeat sort of thing. Not to that level, but I think Leon's just going to sort of stay on the outside, pick his shot, win the little battles everywhere. He's just going to keep him away, control that distance. When they're clinching up, he's going to have to be wary, but I think he might get a few good elbows in the clinch. If it comes to a wall, I think he's going to be all right. Then I think he's going to run away with it. So I think Leon by decision.
Yeah, man. My head says Leon Edwards as well. I think the way he seems to land that right hand, like a nice crisp right hand from the outside, I feel like that's something that obviously Masvidal got smashed with a clean right hand in his last fight. And I think his crisp, so just the crispness and athleticism of Leon Edwards, I think he's just going to sneak it through. However, my heart wants Masvidal to win. I just like his style. He's an interesting guy. I'd like to see him get a chance to fight someone like Colby, and he may do that with a win or a loss, I guess. But I'd really like to see him win. I'd like to see Colby win, and then those two fight for a title again. Just be a cool story to watch, you know. And Masvidal, I think when it starts, both of them are going to look pretty similar to start with. They're both going to be feinting, exchanging leg kicks, exchanging some nice punches. And of course, he still has a pretty good chance. It's a very tight fight, I think. And especially in a 3-round fight, I think Masvidal still has a very good chance of blitzing and landing something strong or getting some advantage in the clinch. But who knows? Let's see how we go. For now, the pick is Edwards, but my heart says I wish Masvidal wins.
I wonder what the odds are on this one, actually.
The odds are that Edwards is the favorite, I believe.
Yeah, okay. Is he slight or major? Do you know?
I think it's in the Australian way. I think it's like it's more than two point something to
okay.
1 for Masvidal and 1.8 or something for.
Yeah, okay.
Leon.
I'm honestly surprised at that. I thought, Jorge is coming off that knockout loss to Kamaru, but I thought sometimes, you know how someone like Jorge is a fan favorite, even though it might not be like their most sort of fight with odds match the fight how it should be, because the sort of casual fans that they jump on and they can put the money, they can swing the odds. But it is interesting to see that Leon's still sort of like a bigger favorite.
Yeah, man. So you can't jump on on Colby's guess and throw all your money on Edwards because you don't win so much, but it's still worth a bet. I reckon Edwards is on his way out right. His momentum's going forward. Whereas Jorge's kind of, even though he's just fought for the belt, his kind of momentum is slowed down a little bit from what it was when he was knocking people out, knocking out Till, knocking out Askren. That was probably his peak. And he seems to be potentially on the way out. I wonder if it get affected by, because obviously his money and everything he's earning now must be like completely different to what it was before, right? Like he's become such a favorite after these big KO wins and his style that, you know, he'd have a few more fights and he can retire for a long, long time, right?
Plus, it's a little side note, but also with all the AEW stuff he's doing, like the pro wrestling stuff, like obviously he's not doing a lot of that sort of stuff, but still you got to think, whilst he's doing that, Leon is probably still out training, still 100% committed, focused on the training camp, focused on sort of the angle of the belt, whereas fair play to Jorge going in other avenues, that's perfect. But I wonder if we might see him sort of slip up a little bit because he isn't as focused as someone like Leon coming into this fight.
Another thing is I sort of can't wait till they start having to do these press encounters where they're with each other, because they're going to kind of start to get into it for sure. Like I'm not so sure physically. Jorge reckons that he doesn't want to engage physically when he's contracted to fight someone, but it wouldn't take much. It wouldn't take much to get him G'd up, and I think they're both going to have things to say to each other because they're obviously not the best of friends.
Yeah, exactly right. I do think Jorge wins a mic battle, so I think he's a lot more like quick-witted, and he will sort of be able to sort of 10-8 Leon on the mic. I think it's good for Jorge to get in front of the mic, and it's going to sort of really build up the fight if they do get that press conference.
Yeah, true. Anyway, something to look forward to, man. We've got a while to wait.